afternoon and welcome. That's better, isn't it? Yes. I'm Eva Leinonen, President of Maynooth University, and it's my great pleasure to welcome you all today here for the distinguished lecture series, which is by Professor Jan vom Brocke. And as you know, Jan joins us as part of our Distinguished International Collaborator Program. We launched that program earlier this year, and the idea behind the program is that we bring internationally renowned scholars and leaders to Maynooth. Because we want to enrich our intellectual environment and also expand our global networks. And this program also enables us to engage proactively with world-leading researchers and also build long-term partnerships. And in this way, we can all together try to tackle some of the very complex challenges that we all face in the world in our time. So an inaugural lecture like today's showcases academic achievement. It fosters dialogue with both academic and broader community, and also offers newly appointed professors an opportunity to share their scholarly vision. It's an important event, both for the individual and our institution. And as many of you know, this event is also part of our Research Week, which is a very important opportunity for us to witness the excellence of research at all different levels in our university. And it enables us to really celebrate our achievements and engage with the wider community. And also think about the impact that our research has on society, locally and globally. It's a very important week that we are here today, part of. As many of you will know, that research and innovation are central to our strategy, and we have identified 5 interdisciplinary areas, or beacons as we call them, which we believe we can make a significant impact on through our research. And these 5 areas are data and digital transformation, health and well-being, heritage, culture and language, society and public policy, and sustainability and climate change. And by focusing on these areas, we aim to really enhance our reputation as a university, but also, as I said earlier, contribute to solutions to some of the most pressing problems in the world. So our distinguished professor today, Professor vom Brocke, is a globally recognized leader in information systems and one of the co-founders of process science. He holds the chair of Information Systems and Business Process Management at the University of Münster in Germany, and is director of the European Research Center for Information Systems. His pioneering work, particularly in using digital trace data for service innovation, aligns very closely with our focus of one of our beacons, i.e. data and digital transformation. Professor vom Brocke's contributions have been widely recognized in the world. He has published extensively in top journals like Management Science, MIS Quarterly, and Journal of the Association for Information Systems. His work has also earned numerous international awards, including being named a Fellow of the Association for Information Systems and being ranked among the top 1% of scientists in the world, according to the Stanford list. Now, process science, which is the focus of Professor von Brocke's talk today, offers valuable insights into how organizations and societies can navigate continuous change, something, of course, we all experience in our everyday lives. His interdisciplinary approach, which combines data, technology, and importantly, human insights, has the potential to drive science innovation, service innovation, and real impact across different industries. So today, in addition to Professor vom Brocke's lecture, we are fortunate to have a distinguished panel of experts joining us today. The panel will include Professor von Brocke, of course, alongside Professor Marcus Helford. And Marcus, of course, is a professor for digital service innovation and director of the Innovation Value Institute here at Maynooth. Professor Rachel Masetfi, who is our Vice President for Research and Innovation, and Dr. Sarah Gibney, who is Principal Officer at the Department of Public Expenditure, National Development Plan Delivery and Reform. They will bring together very diverse perspectives on the role of digital transformation innovation in both academic and public service. So I would like to thank most sincerely Professor vom Brocke for being here today and supporting Maynooth University and our research endeavours, and also importantly sharing his expertise with us. I'm also grateful to Professor Masetfi and also Professor Helford for organising today's programme. Thank you again, and please join me now in welcoming Professor Jan vom Brocke. Thank you.
Dear President, dear Eva, thank you so much for your super kind introduction. It really means a lot to me to be here today to give an inaugural lecture at Maynooth University. And so I'd like to share probably a few personal words before I go into the bits and details of process science. It's really moving and touching for me. I've been to Ireland a lot, and I have always had the great admiration for the Irish academic community. I enjoy working with so many colleagues in Ireland and spend time with the family in Ireland, and specifically the colleagues at Maynooth. I think have been always very welcoming to me, and so I'm very, very grateful. If I reflect, it's actually 20 years that I first came to Ireland. And it's hard to believe it's only 20 years, because it feels like I always came. But it's been 20 years when I had the opportunity to teach a course at UCD, it was, at the Smurfit School in Blackrock. And that was when I was a postdoc in Münster, the university. And some of you may know Stefan Klein. He was teaching at UCD at that time, and for one semester he was expected to be back to Münster. And so I kind of sneaked into his office, his apartment, his bike, and that was very nice. And so we, and the course was on business process management also. So it's again, already 20 years ago, I was working on related topics. At that time, my today wife and mother of our beautiful children, Moritz and Mickey, some of you know them well, she joined DCU for that winter term in 2004, actually by accident, because she got the abbreviations wrong. And only when we only when we landed in Dublin, she realized, oh, wait a minute, is that not the same university? And that was also when we first kind of encountered services, in specific mobility services, because we lived in Sandymount, and for my wife it wasn't easy to commute to DCU. But still, also for those who are probably from DCU, she then of course very much enjoyed the academic environment there and the group. We've come back to Ireland ever since, multiple times per year, and have many friends and colleagues, dear colleagues. And Maynooth in specific has been always very, very close to my heart and to our heart. And this is specifically due to my very dear colleague and close friend, Brian Donnellan, who has been the first Maynoothian I ever met. And Brian has always inspired me largely by his positive attitude, by his kindness, by his visionary thinking and his energy level. And So that is very, very nice, Brian. I'm very grateful that you introduced me here to Maynooth community, and that's a really highly appreciated. Who knows Brian would also know that at some point Brian also introduced us to the West Coast. And so it happened that for 1.5 years, together with the family, we lived in Galway, and we made many friends on the West Coast there also. I went there for a sabbatical, and then we extended with the kids, and they went to the Clatter School, and we still have many friends. And whenever a school holiday back home, then we take the kids and the dog and come over to Ireland. So this is, you might see us more often now in the future. It's giving you a little warning up front. Also, I've been in Maynooth during that time a couple of times, and Dean Peter McNamara, we know each other also from a couple of committees where I enjoyed serving. And that also was very nice for us. Now our collaboration really very much got further intensified together with Brian and also the new leadership team in Maynooth. And I really would like to express my gratitude to you, President Eva, and Vice President Rachel, and also Marcus as the new director of IVI. We always had collaborations, but I think we really brought it to a next level altogether, and I'm very grateful for that. And I think today marks a kind of a milestone in this, which is really, really nice. And at this point, I would also very explicitly like to mention 3 exceptional people who very much helped along this way, and I don't want to mispronounce the names, so I will read them, and hopefully I get them right even when reading. And this is Elaine McCarthy. It is Deirdre Clayton. Where are you? There you. You're both there? Very good. Thank you. And it's also Carol Conley. You are so wonderful. You are so hardworking and make things happen. I think that is absolutely amazing, and I probably would not be here today if that would have not, if you would have not been so active and so nice and helping. So now, being accepted a member of the faculty here at Maynooth University really means a lot to me, and I so much look forward to working with all colleagues and friends at Maynooth University, but also at other Irish universities and also other Irish institutions. And various stakeholders in society and business. And in that spirit, I have also tried to prepare the inaugural lecture to present a little what I'm doing, to show, give a little bit of an insight, also for a broader audience, so that you can probably get a little ideas also for collaboration and see how we might be able to collaborate in the future. Okay. Once again, really cordially thank you for doing this and for being here today. Also to all the audience. If I may, I would like to then start the lecture talking a bit about process science and process science really also from a perspective that we take digital trace data. I will talk about what is that. My background is in information systems, so I'm interested in all this kind of digital things. And also I would like to talk about how we can use this now to achieve objectives, and in specific to generate something of value to society. If I loved that in your introduction also, that this is something I in my own research, it's very motivating for me, and I love the strategy and the focus of Maynooth University for that also, that there is this clear commitment to societal value creation. And in our world, that very much relates then to service systems and to service innovation. Yeah, I remember my or my wife's mobility experience in Dublin. I think we all have similar experiences, and it can be really enjoyable or it can be really nasty if services are, how they are. And so we try to make services across sectors, in the health sector, in the government sector, mobility sector, in industries. We try to make them smooth so that they work for us, that they work for the people, and we try to use digital technology in order to accomplish that goal. Now that's kind of the explaining a little bit probably the title. I have also asked myself, maybe I give you 3 key aspects which I hope to deliver in the presentation up front, and then in the end we can reflect to what extent I achieved delivering those. The first is I would like to, of course, introduce process science. What is that? And I would like to make the point that this is an exciting field of research, specifically because it helps us to understand and also to manage change. And I think change is something super obvious, right? I don't want to stress the pandemic too much, but ever since the pandemic, I think we have seen so much change. We have socio-political change around the world, which is changing the way we live and organizations would operate. And also we have change driven by information technology. If you look into AI, what is possible there today, a few years back, nobody would have, in his or her wildest dreams, had imagined that something like generative AI would be there, changing the way we study and the way we write articles or reviews or whatnot. I think also there's so many different sources of change. So change, my understanding, let's see, maybe also in the discussion, if we can link back to that, I think is the core capability today for organizations as well as individuals to be able to deal with change. And not only to react to change, but to thrive in times of change. Yeah, to actually really build on that and take that for your own advantage and be, as an individual, happy also in times of change. And so that's why process science, and I will introduce that, is a science which tries to get really to the grounds of change. So what is that, and how does it happen, and how can we conceptualize change? That's the first thing I'd like to convey. The second I'd like to convey is that digital trace data today is an amazing sense we have in order to do process science and in order to study change. And digital trace data, with this I mean all the traces we leave with our phones, which we carry around, and where we would see where are individuals moving, what are movement patterns, the traces you leave when you like something on LinkedIn or Facebook or other social media, every comment you leave, every booking you do, every payment you do with your phone is always time-stamped data, and this data is an amazing source to do research, right? Because it kind of really mirrors what's going on, and that's really for the first time in that quantity. And then together with AI, we do have methods also to very effectively analyze such data. And so that's a big opportunity, right? So on the one hand, we have kind of the huge challenge that we live in such a wild time of change, where everything is changing all the time and we can hardly foresee what's coming. So we can, in essence, specifically try to be able to deal with change. That's a challenge for a lot of organizations. At the same time, we have this huge opportunity, which is that we are actually able also now to get to change and to measure it and to scientifically study it, and kind of this marriage between this opportunity and the challenge, I think, is very characteristic then for process science. And the third thing I'd like to refer to is that process science based on digital trace data is an amazingly powerful approach to do service innovation and to develop and to design and to adjust future service systems, which also is kind of a focus on research and transfer projects and in of the Innovation Value Institute in Maynooth. So that's also why this is, I think, a very, very nice match. Okay, so that's kind of what I hope to convey, and Let me probably start, first of all, by sharing a little bit of excitement about process. I mean, as you heard, even 20 years ago, I was teaching process. And so no wonder I love processes. So I understand that. So I might be a bit biased. For me, everything is a process, but maybe I can convince you a little that everything, in fact, really is a process. And that what happens here, for instance, also is a process, right? And that's beautiful. Everything which is alive is coming to us as a process, right? Because it is changing, it is moving, it is happening, it's dynamic. There are chairs, there's screens, there's a beautiful lecture theater, but it would be cold if we would not be here, and if we would only sit here and do nothing, again, it would still be cold. But in the way we interact together, that's what makes the difference. And that's the process. So actually, an inaugural lecture is not a thing, it's not a system, it's a process. Right? And on the top right corner, you see this good or bad sign. And that is interesting too, because on the one hand, everything is a process. And second, even more so, by the way we do the process, we determine if it turns out good or bad. Wow, that's powerful, isn't it? Like I would have, when I was a student, I would have not imagined I could do something that powerful. So everything is a process, and then also I learn how I turn everything into good or bad by the way how I run this process. And we could do a really, really bad inaugural lecture by not showing up, for instance, or by not having these beautiful gowns, or by, we turn it into something really, really nice, and beautiful music, and it all, comes together and makes this process by the way we organize it and by the way we run the process. And that's why I think process research is very fascinating. And of course, we see also process research is super practically relevant and societally relevant. Because what happens, what we experience in our families, our kids, our friends, is all a process, right? And so I think it is super relevant for organizations and for research as well. And now comes my information systems perspective, which is that when we organize processes and try to make them better, and not bad processes, but good processes, then today we have an amazing opportunity using technology. And this is what we try to do when we analyze processes and when we try to innovate services in society, that we think about, okay, there is a new technology, how can we use that for the better of society, right? So you typically, and that's probably again my own perspective is, but when we do process research, we always ask, okay, this contemporary new technology like AI, how could we use that in order to create really, really superior processes, which are probably more efficient, which are less costly, which are more sustainable, which are more healthy for people. You will see a couple of examples. It's not only about time, cost, quality, but it's really also about quality of life, and it can be about safety, it can be about resilience, and the many aspects, as you see here also on the picture. Typically and conventionally, people thought about business processes only in terms of what happens in a warehouse, but the excitement today really, and what characterizes also my own research, is we study processes in the real world, out there in the wild. Now, let me give you some theoretical foundations. And I thought, giving an inaugural lecture at such a fine university, I cannot only show pictures. So there needs to be probably some theory in it, okay? But then also, I like to say that there's probably nothing more practical than a good theory. Because a good theory helps you to predict something, right? A theory helps me to predict that if I let go with this clicker, it might fall and I can't use it anymore. So I hold on to it, I won't let it fall. And it would be wonderful if we had this with AI also, right? But we don't. We just play around with it, random. Nobody really knows what's going on. But we try to do prototypes and have a bot here and a bot there, a large language model there. And this is what we in our research try to overcome. We want to more systematically understand how is value created through technology. And this is theoretical background I'd like to present to you real quick. It's not a big theory. It starts like this. Typically, these days, we have new digital technologies, and we're all excited about the technologies, right? People, we had the blockchain hype, then there was metaverse. Very few people talk about metaverse these days, because it's AI these days. And then there's quantum coming. Yesterday evening, we discussed what's next after AI. There's always kind of, in an increasing speed, new technology coming. And it's inspiring some people what we could do with this new technology to create value. Now, disappointing news, research shows no connection, right? That's kind of the shocking news for all information systems people. They also refer to as the productivity paradox, that there's no empirical evidence that who puts more money into IT would actually get better value out of it. But good news for all information systems researchers, there is a connection. It's not direct, but it's mediated via, no surprise, process. Of course, right? And so this, however, I think is a really, really nice conceptual thinking, which shows already a key mechanism of how value is created through technology. And this is that every technology, information technology in specific, but every technology, a hammer as well, doesn't create any value by being there, right? But just by buying a hammer, you're not generate value. You pay for the hammer, right? Just as you pay for probably AI or pay for blockchain or other technology. And it doesn't work like, it doesn't do anything for you until you start doing something with the hammer or the AI. So the technology always affords us to do things. It gives us action opportunities. Yeah, I have a very strong hammer, or I have a tiny hammer, yeah, or makes a big difference, and it affords different things to do with it. And then what you do with it, that's what generates the value. But also, you see the hammer example, you can also, just by using a hammer, you not necessarily create value. You need to use it the right way for something meaningful. You could use a hammer and start hammering here at the screen. That's not good. No value created by using the hammer. And again, AI, we probably do that all the time. We're hammering where we shouldn't hammer. Probably, it's just because we don't know better. Yeah? And so we try to, in our research, find that out. Okay, and then that's now already the full-blown kind of theoretical understanding. The very tricky thing also is that it's not only the technology which via process generates value, but it's task technology people. It's always people using the technology for a certain task. And I think we have all experienced fantastic technology, which for some reason, surprisingly, has never been used as the designers have intended it. Knowledge management is a great example. I have been kind of into a couple of so many projects and heard about projects, where people thought when the internet, oh, hey, we could share stuff. Why not? Yeah, we can have a wiki page and everybody, and then it's great because we can all share. But if you don't want to share, nobody shares. If there's no incentive for people to share stuff, people would not share stuff. So people and task need to be in line. So very often, kind of then the invention, the sweet spot is really in this innovative process, which makes use of some technology, which is really affording something of added value for specific people, for specific tasks in a use context. And Dublin is different to Maynooth, it's different to Galway, it's different to Cork, it's different to Munich, it's, and I'm only talking about, close regions, like if you go to Asia, if you go to Australia, you would know things are different, people are different, tasks are different. In China, they do facial payment now, I learned the other day. So you just walk out of the shop, because they have your face scan anyways, and just by walking out of the shop, you pay. Bam. Yeah, it doesn't happen in Maynooth today, wouldn't happen in Münster either, but in China, apparently, it does. Yeah? And there you get it also. I mean, all the pros and cons. This might be a bit spooky, right? So I would probably not like that so much myself. But there you see, there's the whole complexity. Yeah. But I just wanted to make this point as an important conceptual framework, and again showing kind of why processes are so central to our work. Now, what is a process is something which also started very much the discussion on what could be a process science in the end, because some of us, we might know something like this. And obviously, so this is when I was a student in a way. That's how we kind of approach processes. Huh? It is BPMN now. There's a new kind of newer language how to model processes, but still it's kind of a process model. And in such a process model, I don't want to say nobody needs this, but they definitely, I would say, do not deliver what I've just illustrated can be delivered, right? Because by having such a model for this fantastic lecture experience here, we have probably had no of those models. We didn't need it. We needed super nice people, we needed ideas, we needed a nice environment and all that, but probably not such a model, right? So I want to get this out of the room also right away. This is not what we think about when we say process. It's not the process model, even though a lot of organizations have lost millions and decades by creating this for the good of some consulting companies. But this again is something we kind of would like to overcome. So this is also very much then the kind of origin of process science, that we say, okay, to a certain extent, maybe it is important to also model a process, but then we might have various other perspectives on a process. We might take digital trace data, we might observe people, we might talk to people from psychology, we might talk to so many different people. And this is similar to this analogy with the blind people and the elephant, which some of you might know, right? So there's an elephant, we can see that, but the people, they are all blinded, and they observe the elephant, and they really, I promise you, they do their very, very best. They do their very, very best. But here the lad in the front thinks, okay, it must be a spear, must be a snake, and the lad kind of on the leg thinks, oh, that must be a tree, right? And they're all wrong. Nobody gets it, it's an elephant. And why is that? I mean, no blame. I mean, they are really observing really hard and as good as they can, but they don't talk to one another, right? If the one would say, oh, I think it's a tree, and the other, it's a spear, oh, it's a snake, then kind of a smart algorithm would say right away, hey, that's an elephant, right? But since they did not talk to one another, they did not realize. And I think this is something which is very typical also for process research, and probably for other areas of research also, that we always have kind of our limited view on things. So for instance, here my esteemed colleague and friend Will van der Aalst, computer science, one of the inventors, or the inventor of process mining. He would look into digital traces, and he would look into this immediately. Another colleague, Jan Recker, would think, okay, how is this now changing the world? And Brian Pentland here in the middle, org scientist, is always interested in how is something changing and moving, right? So they all have kind of different perspectives. And for a good long while, they never talked to one another. Because the one guy, they went to their computer science conferences, where I wouldn't understand much when I attend those lectures. And the others go to the org science conferences, where sometimes it gets very theoretic also for some people, you know. So, and they say they are all in their camps, but they very little collaborate. And that was kind of the very simple initial idea to start process science, that we would actually say, we don't want to change that there are people in their own camps. We want to have them doing specialized work in their camps, but we want to establish a platform where we can integrate and accumulate what they are doing in their camps. And that is the idea, to say, put process in the center and invite contributions from various different disciplines. And we kind of like this thinking. It's not cross-disciplinary, it's not interdisciplinary, it's not transdisciplinary, it might be post-disciplinary. Because we think beyond discipline, right? We start with the phenomenon of interest first, process, and now we invite, yeah? So process first and discipline second, in a way, and that might be referred to as post-disciplinary work. So giving a bit of a definition, like kind of what is that now, process science, and what is a process? I think kind of that is what we shared already now by looking into those examples. Process science is a study of continuous change in specific, because also a process we would always define now as a sequence of changes. And you see, this is pretty generic for the purpose of serving as a platform for various other disciplines to link to that. So we wanted a disciplinary agnostic definition, or sort of minimal viable understanding of what we are talking about. And believe me, it was tough enough to come up with such definitions. Okay, now let me talk a little about the fascination of digital trace data. I think I did that already a little, so I might be able to speed up and make up a bit on the time. But I think it is a very fascinating phenomenon that we do have this digital trace data today. And I'd like to illustrate this aspect of digital traces as opposed to the process model I showed you earlier with this photograph. So that might well be a photograph on Maynooth campus. And what does it show? It shows there is a path where a smart architect was absolutely convinced most beautiful path goes there to the center, and then, take a left. And that's how they built it. That's how they built this path. But then people have experienced different. They take shortcuts, right? In some organizations that happens also. There are some, there are some guidelines, standing operating procedures, and then people find their shortcuts. And for a long time, what organizations did, they were kind of fencing and kind of chasing the people who are deviant from what is expected as a guideline. And kind of here the thinking now is different, is to say, hey, maybe that's a source of improvement and innovation. Like, so many people can't be wrong. I mean, maybe, obviously, there is a demand, there's a need, there's an interest in taking such a shortcut. So why not change the architecture? And that is referred to also, there's some research in process science, which is referred to as positive deviance studies, right? Where you look at where is processes, why are they deviant from the standard, and what performance do they create? And then we try to learn from. And so not chase the deviance, but try to learn from it and praise it and see why is it, and how can we probably implement that. So one example here from, it's published, so I can say that. That was us doing process mining together with Hilti. Hilti is also a power tool, construction company, also in Dublin. Been awarded a great place to work many times, also in Ireland, I know. And they had here this one process, which I think is a order to cash process, right? And they said, when I suggested we might want to mine this process, they said, Jan, we don't need this process. Look at another process, because this process is really, clear-cut. It's a straightforward 7 steps process. We have really figured that out. Take maybe another process. And what we did was we took actually this process, this 7 steps process, and we analyzed historic data from 2 years. And we figured there are actually close to 70,000 different ways this process has actually been conducted during these 2 years, based on actual data. Not based on what the architect thought, it's a straightforward 7 steps process. No, we measured what has really happened. Like with the park example, where have people really found their way? And that was 70,000. And now, imagine, also as decision makers, You ground your decisions on the assumption it's a clear-cut 7-step process. That's kind of your understanding of the world, while it actually is 70,000 different ways of doing this stuff. No surprise, it's a bad decision you take if because you have such a kind of abstracted and an inappropriate understanding of the process. And this is what we are doing in process science in large scale. I'll give you another example in a minute. But I wanted to start off with this very simple example, which we can illustrate easily. So what's the foundations of that? It sounds magic and very rocket science. It actually is not very technically sophisticated. The foundation is time-stamped data. We say event log data. So everything is recorded. You pay in your online banking. There kind of is a log entry, like in your diary. Everything what is done with the support of information systems is kind of logged. There's a huge logbook. And if we want to know how many people are here in the room, we could just simply place a sensor at the door and we could count that. If we wanted to know how's the room climate, we could measure that. If we wanted to know what's the noise level, what's the light, so we could measure that. There's a wonderful world of sensors, so taking more and more data. What we could also do, and we do that, taking body data. Who's wearing a smartwatch? Some of you are wearing a smartwatch, right? Brian, you do, I know. I've seen your smartwatch. Thank you. These smartwatches, they take, galvanic skin response, heart rate, and research in neuroinformation systems has shown kind of that you can predict emotions. You can predict stress, you could predict cognitive load just by taking these very simple data points, which you're all used to take. So we get into kind of event logs, which are super rich, and that's the idea of process science, to not only have kind of event logs based on, say, your ERP system, but also based on movement patterns of people, based on what people write on social media, based on body data and various different sources. Okay, now I give you another example, which is getting a little bit further into process science, which we conducted with a bank. Financial services, I think, are super important, also in Ireland. We all have bank accounts. Every organization has bank accounts, and banking, of course, financial services is fascinating because it has no boundaries. Would also be an interesting aspect, of course, for Irish businesses, and I'm sure it is. And here, this was a bank from Liechtenstein, which was very big in cryptocurrency business at that time. And it was a small bank which was growing quite quickly. And they had, so through this growing, a lot of issues with their onboarding process, onboarding new customers. And you might be familiar with the KYC, which is know your customer. You cannot only simply open up a bank account today, but you need to explain, where did you get your 100 euros from? Have you stolen it, or have you, where does it come from? What's the source of origin and all that? And that is a very nasty, difficult process for banks, and also for this bank. And what they had such a low-code platform which allows people to change the system without programming. And so they did. And however, they changed the system and they realized, it's not really getting any better, as I introduced in the very beginning. So they kind of randomly did things without really understanding the mechanisms of change, what's behind that. And so we started to work with them. Again, took data of 2 years back and tried to make sense and tried to reconstruct, like in a crime story. Yeah? So we were kind of looking into what was going on there and then, and how can what can we learn about the process over 2 years. And so first of all, here's the process of this onboarding, and you see this is again this business process modeling and notation, BPMN notation. You have different, they call it swim lanes. So here you see kind of there was a customer involved, the account manager and the compliance department and so forth. I don't need to run you through this entire process, but you see here red is the so-called happy path. So if everything turns out okay, correct, then that would be kind of how the process runs. And also what you could see here, there are two places in the process where it might get a bit difficult because there might be so many iterations and that's of course where we looked into it. Of course the customer presents the data and the account manager realizes it's probably not complete, and then you have iterations there. Same iterations with the account manager and the compliance department. Okay. So that's how far you can get if you look into such a process model. What we then did was we looked into the real data, into all those instances, the digital trace data I showed you, and that was over 2 years. It was 900 onboarded customers in that period, and the guys did 42 changes to the system. And you see here illustrated how we computed that. So we had all the digital traces of the real execution of the processes, and then we computed a complexity measure. So we looked into the amount of possible paths one could run through this process based on the historical paths that were taken. And it always reminds me kind of a heart rate in a way curve, because also it is really changing a lot. And I show you here the one example. You see that that's what we call descriptive. We first of all plotted what was going on, and we were able to discover that the complexity was absolutely changing all the time. Sometimes the complexity was low and then it peaked really dramatically, what you do not want to have. And so what then was the reason we were wondering, and that was what we then looked into, so-called explanatory process science, where we tried to investigate, and we went back to people and said, where it peaked, what was happening there? Was there a new regulation, or was there a merger, or what has happened there? So we inquired and tried to better understand. Actually, what we found was that it was a problem that they had a low-code platform, and so that everybody was able to change the system so quickly, because they were not changing it too often, and they were not considering the spin-off effects in other areas. So while they tried to fix a little issue in the process, they created bigger issues in other parts of the process. And that was the reason for the peaks. So then that was an interesting insight, right? So that we then introduced mechanisms how to deal with that. And that is the full thing. You see, I don't talk you through all those events there, but you can imagine, like, we really investigated, like in a crime story, right? We tried to make sense. What was wrong there? And that's really fun. And we really got to super interesting insights, which we only were able to gain because we looked at the actual execution and not only at the model. Now, the future is, on the one hand, that we get to a much better understanding of change. We already in this study, we realized there's different types of change. Some of the change was, change came sudden, other change came incremental, then some change was permanent, other change was more ephemeral, going away again. Then there was some little bumps, and then there were some bursts, right? So in this research, we conceptualized that different types of change, which again is super interesting, because if you know, okay, this is now, it's a change, yeah? There's some, there's a shower coming. Okay, but yes, wait 3 minutes and sunshine again, right? Then it's not a biggie, it's not a problem to have some rain. Right? But if you don't know, oh man, will that stay now or will that go away? Then it is a problem. So this is kind of research-wise, so we get more to the bones of change. Another thing then, which is personally I find super fascinating, is that we develop personal digital assistants based on this knowledge we create, and that would be tools that help us do the process management or help us run our processes. By this example, that somebody who would like to change a process, this is overlooked by an AI, and based on the patterns which we were able to identify in the past, you can predict and you can recommend and you can alert. And you can, like in this example, you have to say, Jan, if you're going to do this change, this is likely to increase complexity. Is that what you want? If that's not what you want, I might actually suggest to you a couple of changes which would reduce complexity. And that is, of course, super, super helpful, right? This is like a navigating system in your car, which also is not expecting you to do wild reading in maps, but it tells you next exit, right? And that is what we are working at. And this is, just to give you an example, this is not science fiction, but we did that last winter term together with students from the European Research Center for Information Systems and Hilti. And I also give you a little insight into that. This is a bit the technicality. We have created a large language model and trained it, which we feed by means of different content. And this is not specialized process content, but it is content which is in PowerPoint shows, which is in Word documents, which is in drawings, and we feed that into the system, and then we allow with a bot to ask and to prompt for such process knowledge. And that we did, and I also brought, I hope this can be started, I'm not sure, let me see, yes, I think it can be started. I brought you a little insight from the final presentation of the students. They asked me to draw a diagram of which I should make up. So I said, okay, typical day of Jan. So I wake up and kids breakfast and drive kids to school, go to uni, go to lab, submit a paper, receive a rejection, start a revision, write a grant proposal, call the colleagues in Maynooth, all this kind of stuff. And it was a drawing. I have difficulties to read by now. And they took a picture and then uploaded it on this bot platform. And then they were able to prompt. They were asking, what's a typical day of Jan? And the system actually, as we know it from Gen AI tools and bots, actually spit this out. And also presented a few, first of all, much nicer than I was doing it. And second, also explaining it a little. So I was absolutely surprised. And that was real time. So the students really did a great job to do that in the final presentation. A lot of courage, I would say, also, and I find this is very interesting. And it shows what's possible and what's feasible. Hilti is now using this also. And we are hoping to do similar stuff together in Maynooth. Okay, let me kind of wrap up maybe the lecture with a bit of an outlook on an agenda. How could that look like when we now jointly apply process science together at IBI in Maynooth for service innovation? And first of all, I'd like to make the point that this is of utility in various sectors and across sectors, right? Already today, we work with a lot of banks in the financial service sector. We work with industry companies. We work with IT companies. We work also with governmental institutions, with mobility providers, in order to get to the better understanding of their processes. Now, whenever we do this, and that's the last model I'm going to present to you, whenever we do this, we follow kind of this schema. And I think that you have seen kind of we are up to the data sources, which are interesting, right? So what data can we get at? And that can be ERP systems, sensor, body data, social media data. That can be documents which are kind of publicly available. So that is a kind of an interesting first part that we think about, okay, what do we want to know, but then also what kind of data sources can we get at? And that we integrate in order to first do a discovery of things, like these peaks with the onboarding process, for instance. Now, in order to do that, we absolutely vitally collaborate with the real world. I think that's also something you immediately understand. Such process science I cannot do on my own on my desk. I need to, and I want to, go out there to the real world. I want to, for instance, take the campus and measure what's really going on and use that as a case. Or I want to go into decision making in certain areas in politics and see what data do we have and how can we get to probably more evidence-based decision making or policy making or whatnot. So that will be kind of vital that we build in the real world. At the same time, we kind of connect to the various disciplines, academic disciplines, and we use the various different models and methods, computational methods, empirical research methods, theories which are already out there, in order to compute this data and in order to further process the data. And then, once we've done the discovery, you've seen an example with the bank that we try to explain what's going on, and then we try also to create something of utility. Also, we refer to this as design science research. Brian and I, and Marcus also, we are very active in that space. And this is then trying to develop something like a bot I've presented or the students have developed. And interestingly, this is then giving back to industry, and it's also giving back to science. Because we, on the one hand, create tools of utility, which people in governments, in hospitals, in universities, in societies, in families can use in order to deal with change better and to live a healthier life in times of change. Very often also a stress-reduced life. It's also something which we're kind of linking to health aspects in society and mental health in specific. We expect a lot of support through such smarter services which are provided to people. And at the same time, we of course also, as you've seen, we inform back to theory, such as, for instance, the types of change which we have discovered in this one paper. So that's kind of an overarching model. So whoever would like to do process science, it's ready to use. Yeah? So we can start using it and start using it also in line with the strategy of Maynooth University in the real world with real people for real value creation. And I think that's very, very rewarding. At the same time, you see, we also need really smart algorithms and computing knowledge, and we need organizational knowledge, we need psychological knowledge, so we need knowledge from various areas. And that again probably is really, really nice for joint research at Maynooth and beyond. Okay, so I go back to probably my 3 statements. I hope I was able to deliver what I promised. Process science enables us to see, understand, and manage change, right? Like with the digital trace data. And digital trace data is also a super foundation for service innovation. And we are here to start, right? Let's start doing process science, one process and one service at a time. Thank you very much.